Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is hautemesstom. Thank you so much for watching me. If you're new here, I would love to have you subscribe. I'm currently in the midst of a 6-month no-buy, and I do mention this at the top of every video that I do create right now, because I think it's important to know that I'm coming at everything I'm talking about on my channel from that context. So if you want more information about how my no-buy is working, why I decided to do it, you can click in the cards above, or I will link it down below. I won't link it down below. I always forget. So today, I've been thinking a lot if I could get into a time machine and start my makeup journey over again, what would I do differently, and how would I have liked that to look as someone who is now 5 years to being into makeup as a hobby. I also think this will be kind of good advice if you are new to makeup, as far as buying items, being a little bit more into the makeup industry as opposed to just being a passive makeup buyer, because there is a difference. So you're very excited about makeup, you're interested in new releases, you're kind of following along with things. I think this could, I'm not saying that this is the exact advice that I would give anyone, but this is just stuff that in self-reflection, in retrospect, that I think would have behooved me 5 years deep, Tom, to have taken into consideration at the beginning of my makeup journey. I hope that makes sense, but we'll talk about it just a little bit as time goes on. So the first thing I would wish I would have done when I first started getting into makeup, I wish that I didn't feel the compulsion to buy every new release. And I wish I would have slowly built my collection as opposed to buying just a bunch of stuff at once and just having it. And specifically, I think that the era that I came into makeup was modern renaissance, and it's when palettes were the focus, right? I don't know that everyone focuses on eyeshadows like we did in 2016. It's because palettes, to my best knowledge, eyeshadow palettes had existed, but they were currently revolutionizing eyeshadow palettes in this time, making very interesting color stories. Modern renaissance really changed the game. That was the time that I was coming into the makeup world. So every time a makeup brand launched a palette, I was interested in it almost immediately, and it didn't even matter. I never took a second to consider whether or not that it was something that I would get any use out of. And also, I was new to makeup, so yes, I do need the time and space to explore different types of formulas and types of colors and things like that. But it didn't matter. It was if a new palette was releasing, I was gonna buy it. And so I've really shook that habit in this time, in this day and age, 5 years deep. But in case you don't know, makeup is expensive. Yes, there are affordable options, but to build a makeup collection from the ground up, which I was doing, I didn't wear makeup before 2016. I was starting my collection from the ground up. To even do a full face of makeup at the drugstore is going to cost you between $100 and $200, especially now, because it seems like the price of drugstore makeup is even increasing. So I do think that, I do wish that I didn't feel compelled to buy every eyeshadow palette. And I was a little bit snobby about it at first. I wish, and I joke about being a makeup snob, and I do prefer luxury makeup. Especially when I was starting out, I really wish that I had given myself the space to try even drugstore instead of just being that's not good enough for me. So not only was I building my collection from the ground up, but I was also doing it with mid-range to expensive makeup. And also, I did not have the finances at the time to be funding such a hobby, but I was pulling out my credit card. I was really making the mistake of just overbuying. And when I first started out in makeup, one thing I really wish I would have known and realized is how long it takes to finish some types of makeup. Foundation is something you repurchase a lot. Brow stuff is something you repurchase a lot. Mascara is something that you should be repurchasing a lot. So you are kind of moving through those items more regularly, especially when you're wearing foundation every day. You're not, I don't know how long a bottle would last me if I wore foundation every day. I just don't, because I don't have to. I don't have a job in which I was required to be wearing makeup anymore. I at one point worked at Sephora, but I wasn't even full-time there, so it would be a few times a week I would put a full face of makeup on. And if I was going there after my other job, I wouldn't have makeup on because I don't wear makeup to my other job. And that's a whole big elaborate thing to unpack and discuss. Another thing I wish that I would have taken into consideration at the beginning of my makeup journey would have been to not turn my nose up to trends as I did. Meaning, like, when I came into makeup, almost everything as far as complexion goes was to mattify. We were baking, we were putting so much powder on our faces. The cream foundations that we were using had powders in them to mattify. And over time, I have learned personally that I do like a more like dewy looking skin, even as someone and I think I got this misconception because I have oily skin that I shouldn't wear products that will make me look like I have like a gleam to myself because I am oily. It almost just like felt the rhetoric within the beauty community, because I was learning from how to do my makeup from YouTube essentially, because, you know, welcome to the 2010s, because of course that's the way I learned to do makeup. But I think like the reason I didn't ever want to leave my like Fenty like matte pro filter foundation, or the reason I didn't want to like not bake my face, was because I felt like this the world was telling me online, the beauty community was like, well, if you have oil, you shouldn't like anything that is luminous. But like, that's my preference. And of course, it's like, it might not hold up as well against my oily skin, but I do think that I like the way that that looks a lot better. I just don't buy into, just because my skin is oily, that I have to want to mattify it. And I'm kind of glad that I've been able to break that over time, because like, I think my skin looks much more healthy in makeup with like the luminosity. Now, I mean, there is like too much dew, and I know like I do believe that there is like the other side of like dewiness is like too much. I have been and visited that side as well. But I think that me just like hearing that over and over again really misdirected me as far as like what I would like, because I really think that like I haven't really started liking really loving foundations until recently, because I like was able to break the cycle of thinking, oh, well, I can't be luminous looking. And that's just not true. Another thing that I wish I would have considered at the top of my makeup journey is I wish I wouldn't have dismissed like neutrals or what seemed to be like mainstream typical as far as eyeshadows go. I was like, it has to be hot pink, it has to be blue, it has to be like these vibrant colors. And obviously, if you look at my eyes today, like there's obviously a lot of color going on, a lot of sparkle, a lot of dimension. But like, I also really love palettes that are just like brown, because I think they're so beautiful. They are so beautiful. And also looking at like a palette that is just like a neutral palette, it's just like you can add to that with other things. Like if I wanted to add some of these green sparkles that I have to a neutral palette, I could bring that in and it would work together. So I was very dismissive of anything that like wasn't exciting to me. But now I get very excited about neutrals. And like that might have come with age, but I also think like had I like understood the value of like having some like very good basic products, and how easy, the ease of them, like I wanted to make makeup harder than it has to be. But I think there is a lot to be said about like a very easy look to put on your face, especially as someone who eventually started selling makeup, understanding like what is going to be easy to put on. When I knew that, I would be able to tell people that. So a lot of people, when they come into Sephora, they don't know what they're doing, or they don't know what they're looking for. They're not following what we do here on the internet. They're not following Trend Mood. They're not really getting the information there. So they're relying on sales associates like at Sephora or Ulta to really assist them in trying to make a good decision for them. And so for me, like if I was doing like crazy intense like graphic liner all the time at work, and like never like progressed past that, or like never found a good like just easy look, I could not like help someone else find that for themselves, because I didn't know what to look for, because all I was interested in was like rainbow palettes. And like thinking back, I would like, once you have a rainbow palette, honestly, you don't like really need another one. I think when you find one that you like you don't need to go beyond that. That's more like advice for like if you're new to makeup. If you found like a color story that really speaks to you, but you like already own a palette that has that color story and it works very well for you, you don't need the other ones. You're just going to be disappointed in them. And like, why tempt fate? You might eventually find something that is in that color story that you like the formula better of. But like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which is, it's really hard to do whenever we are in a like industry that is very based on like buying the newness. But like, how much shit do you need to have in your vanity or your space? It's like, you hear people who are on beauty YouTube, especially like the larger creators, the creators who receive PR, the creators who can afford to buy the new releases to fill the gaps of their PR so they can talk about and review things. You hear them time and time again say, well, this is my job, so that's why my collection is so big. And I know that they're saying that in good faith to try to deter people from wanting and desiring to have a makeup collection that looks like the people they're watching on YouTube. It doesn't work, because I watch creators going for a while, I just like wanted to have a beauty room. I do not want to have a room full of cosmetics, especially because now that I know how long it takes to use up an item, having a full room of them would just like cause me anxiety. I also believe that I have too much makeup now, and it is like under control from where it could be or once was. Because once I limited myself to like one small set of IKEA Alex drawers, I am trying to now fit everything I have into them. I probably could if I took some time, but I want there to be like space. I want to get to the point where like my collection is like just the right size, where if I want to try something new, I can bring that one new item in. It's going to fit in my drawer. And then hopefully if that item could replace something in my collection and I like it better, I will declutter the older thing that I do not like to bring in the new thing to my collection instead of just having both. And I don't know that everyone is going to want to function like that and like going to want to work their collection like that. But for me, that is how I foresee my collection going forward once my no buy is over, is like, okay, I'm trying this new bronzer. Not that I need only one bronzer, but like I'm trying a new bronzer. Of the 5 I already have, does it work similarly to any of them? Do I like it better than any of them? Can I get rid of one? Can I bump one off the bottom? And that way, like, my collection isn't like always growing. It is just more so changing to the tastes as my tastes change. And that's another thing that you should take into consideration whenever you're like starting your makeup journey. Your taste will change. You're not going to be like doing your makeup the way you did at the beginning, that you will be doing a year from starting to 2 years from starting to 3 years. You're like, I used to really love, I really wish I could go back and tell Tom, like, just don't do the matte liquid lips. In your head, you think they're going to be like me. It's like, it's what everyone's doing. You want to do the trend. You want to do the matte liquid lip, and you want to get it in bold colors. That was another thing. I always just thought I needed like a bold lip to go with my bold eye. And now I never do that. Like, nude lipstick saved me time and time again. Nude lip glosses. It's just like a nude lipstick, and that's like boring to say. I do love colorful lipstick as well too now, but I do like something that doesn't really have a matte finish, something that has like more of a sheer coverage, something that's gonna feel really light on the lips. Whereas like I was really putting on like matte liquid lipsticks with high pigmentation solely because I like wanted that bold impact and bold color. I don't even know, I used to like want to always have the thing that was going to wear the longest on my face, but honestly, like putting on a lipstick again after I've eaten is like not the worst thing to have to do in the world, and it's more comfortable. And if I have to like reapply my lipstick a few times a day to keep the train rolling, I would rather do that as opposed to just have one lipstick that I put on in the morning and then like feeling it just like become one with my lips. Like, oh no, I wish I would have explored more options outside of the matte liquid lipstick, because it took me a long time to really get into like lip glosses, and I feel like I've been living in the lip gloss preference for the past couple of years now, where it's like I would sooner buy that. But I do really like a sheer light coverage balmy feeling lipstick as well. I just don't often, I feel like I do most of my looks are like heavy on top, so I just think leaving the lip a little bit lighter is definitely the way to go for me personally, because if I'm going to do an intense eye, you can't, I don't like I like a little bit of balance, but there's also nothing wrong if you want to be like bold top to bottom, because I've definitely been there. It can be pulled off, but I I don't want to put in that effort anymore, I guess. It's not that I don't want to put effort into my makeup anymore, but it just, I don't want to put an effort into like a lip product anymore. And then also, if I could go back to the beginning, I wish that I didn't bake my face. I don't know that people are like really baking their face anymore. I still will bake my face if I'm doing like a high impact look, because I find that like if I'm doing like such a bold look that it requires my whole face is like a true canvas where I'm gonna be like putting eyeshadow in places I don't normally put eyeshadow, etc. I will really want like a matte base to really do all of that, especially if I'm like mimicking a drag look. I don't do drag, but sometimes I'm very inspired by the makeup that drag performers do, and I just want to try putting their face on my face. So yeah, I will do like that technique then. But for a look like today, I didn't need to bake my face. I would be looking so dry and crusty if I bake my face. Yeah, it like adds longevity and it does mattify, but again, I'm not looking for that matte look. Sometimes I will like keep a little bit, like a light dusting of powder under my eyes to like give it a little bit of second, to like a little bit of a cooking. But I find that like I don't need to do that often. Like the amount of powder I used to use versus the amount of powder I use now is so vastly different. And I feel like baking used a lot of product, and it's like unnecessary to use that much product. Especially, I mean, I guess take into consideration that like I am aging. I mean, we all are aging. But when I started doing makeup, when I started being interested in makeup, I was 25 years old. I am now 30. So like my skin, the quality of my skin has like changed a little bit. So maybe baking really did work for me at the beginning, but I don't know. It just like, it's not my journey. I also wish I like knew, I wish at the time, because, you know, learning makeup on YouTube, I wish there had been like, everyone was baking their face whenever I like started makeup. I feel like I really haven't truly learned to love powder until relatively recently. Like I love a nice powder that's gonna like do the job. But I think beforehand, I was just buying whatever powders. I like didn't even know what my preference for powder would be, but like I definitely have opinions about like setting powder now that I didn't have for years into my makeup journey, because I was just like, oh, it is just to bake. I like really didn't understand what it would do. I didn't understand like the kind of finishes, that different finishes that they could leave you with. Like I didn't realize that was like an option. I didn't realize I had like options in baking powder. So I wish I just had been more privy to that information. And having been on both sides of this particular problem that I'm going to tell you about, is like people are learning their makeup from the internet because it's accessible, and great. We love the accessibility, and like we love that everyone has the opportunity to educate themselves or like see other people put on their makeup at a level that we weren't always privy to. I remember going in to Sephora and asking questions about like Laura Mercier. And, you know, I don't remember exactly, but like the sales associate was definitely trying to tell me like the benefits of like other powders as well. But I was like so hell bent that I needed the Laura Mercier setting powder that like I was just going to buy that anyway, no matter what the person told me. And like, of course, obviously make your own decisions whenever you are shopping for makeup. If you feel like a sales associate is trying to sell you something and not really educate you, go ahead and buy what you think is best for you, because you do know your skin and you know your preferences as far as makeup. But having been a salesperson in the makeup industry as well, sometimes people will come in, they will ask you questions, and you can tell they're just like not really hearing you. And like, it'd be one thing if they didn't ask me the questions and like they were making their own decision, that's fine. Someone will explain to you like, I really like this style of makeup, but I think in my head I want this item. Whenever I, as someone who's like, you know, tried a lot of things, or like know a lot about things, or like have resources to people who have tried things that like that similar style of makeup, say that they prefer something that isn't that, they just like don't want to hear it. It's just it's an interesting thing to think about, because it's not, I don't think that the internet and the makeup industry on the internet is like inherently bad, but also a lot of people don't want to hear anything from salespeople because they're just like, they think they're trying to sell you something. And that, I guess it should be said too that there are definitely going to be salespeople who are just trying to sell you something. But I definitely, as a salesperson, when I was working at Sephora, was trying to hear people and really like make suggestions to them that I think were going to like benefit them. If I could go back to the beginning and just tell young Tom, I would say, Tom, listen to me. Blush is not a bad thing. Blush is not a bad thing. Blush is not bad. In my head, when I started makeup, like, blush was bad. Like, blush felt like only elderly people wear blush. But, like, that's not even the case. Like, there is a way to do blush that's very, like, subtle and just, like, is like, oh, a little bit of flush of color, just, like, a little bit of something. And then also there is, like, a blush-heavy look, like 80s inspired blush draping looks that you can also do. But in my head, like, it was like an all or nothing situation. But also I didn't really know how to apply blush. The first time I had a makeup artist put blush on me, they put it on, like, if you smile, they just, like, put it on the apples of my cheeks. But that's actually not really where I like to wear my blush. I actually start my application, like, right underneath my highlighter and bring it down so you can see it on the apple of my cheeks, but it's not, like, the focus, because I think that better suits my face. And, like, blush placement, there are videos of people who have, like, done just, like, blush placement videos, but I feel like that wasn't really something we were talking about at the time. Like, blush was definitely not trendy. Blush was definitely not trendy when I started makeup, so I just, like, dismissed it completely. Again, dismissing, I was very easily dismissive of something that I didn't understand. Bronzer. Similarly, didn't understand bronzer. It also, like, if I did bronzer, it was matte. I didn't really understand what it could do. Because, like, again, at the time, bronzer was not, like, something we discussed in 2016. It was all about the eyes. It was all about the eyes and the lips. So we were just, like, uncontoured, like, floating eyeballs and lips walking around. And, like, yes, contour was a thing, but no, none of us were doing it right. And also, it's interesting to think about the mainstream brands that sell contour products. It's like they almost just exclusively sell bronzers with, like, one weird cool tone shade that looks cool in the pan but applies warm on the face. And I'm speaking, like, when you look at, like, the KVD contour palette, those are bronzers. They're, like, called contour shades, but they pull warm. They always pulled warm, and I always wondered why my makeup never looked good whenever I would use those contour palettes, like, use the KVD contour palette, because I would do, like, a very cool toned, like, look, but then I would, like, look so warm in the face, and that's not what I do. I do try to, like, if I'm doing a cool tone look, I will, like, keep it cool. And if I'm doing something very warm on the eyes, I will warm up everything else as well. Just, like, continuity, I guess. That's, like, what I like to do. Not saying it's right or wrong if you don't do that. Like, I just saying, like, that was, like, how I really did it. And then if you look at indie brands and, like, the contours they sell, like, they will have a gray contour. And they will have, like, more neutral contours as well. But I just don't, like, mainstream brands do not sell, like, neutral, like even their neutral, whatever they're calling a neutral bronzer, will still pull warm. Like, I want, like, a true neutral contour. So I wish I knew a little bit more about contouring. And I don't think that we all were very good at our contour placement. It took me a long time, I would say, like, within the last year, 5 years in, to, like, for my contour to really, like, hone in and, like, really do what the point of contouring was. Because I used to take my contour all the way, like, down to my lip, almost like a drag queen, but I would do it with, like, a wide brush. So essentially I was, like, contouring, like, this line that went, like, to my nose. And so I look at old pictures and I just, like, oh, so, like, now I keep my contour, I just have it up here, and then I will do underneath the chin, you know. Like, it's just, like, so much. I just wish, and also, like, I don't contour my nose. Like, you're welcome to contour your nose, but, like, we were really, like, contouring back then. It was just, like, the way, it's, like, the trend, which is so interesting. The way that I always felt like I had to have the new. These are just things that I wish I would have, like, reconsidered and have known at the start of my makeup career, like, makeup journey. I'm sure there are, like, many more things that I could think of if I really sat here and talked about it, but it was just so funny to me that I was like, it had to be rainbow. I had so many rainbow eyeshadow, like, palettes, and like, now I really don't, like, I don't really love a colorful look, and I mean that, like, for me to do on my face. I think it's beautiful when other people play with color. I think it's so stunning, and I'm not trying to dismiss doing colorful looks at all, obviously. But what I am saying is just, like, it's just, my taste has changed so much. And I wonder if I had explored, you know, the tastes that I have now, instead of dismissing them completely when I first started my makeup journey, if I would have, like, found my way a little bit faster to where I am now. But I'm also not going to dismiss all of like the work that I did to be able to get my craft to be where it is now. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are new here, I would love to have you subscribe. I am trying to be more consistent about putting out videos, but like, you know, sometimes, you know, just like life gets in the way. You'll also like this video so more other people can find me in the algorithm. And I will see you in my next video. Friends.